Okay, so welcome to another one of my Fantasy Flight, second edition of the Doom Board Games painting tutorials for people that aren't very good at painting. Today we're going to be painting Revenant. I managed to get the Revenant. There we go. Looking pretty decent. First thing to do, Chaos Black Primer. And then we're going to give him a coating of Bugman's Glow. So there we go. Start plastering the model with paint. Again, make sure you get down to those toes, underneath his feet. And once again, the trick is to just make sure you get a decent amount of paint on the whole model. You're not trying to get a nice even coating, you're not trying to make it look brilliant with this coat. Yeah, just try and coat everything. I mean, obviously the mechanisms around him, the sort of gun harness on his shoulder, you're not really needing to get that coated with this stuff. You are going to be going over that with some silver paint later during the whole process, but it really doesn't hurt, provided you've thinned your paints down a bit. You're not going to do any harm by going over the bits a few times. It's definitely best to get in all the nooks and crannies. There's a few kind of tiny little areas on this guy, around his shoulders and back, his back here. You want to really just try to make sure that you get as much of it covered as you can. Again, I'm quite happy to just cover the whole thing, because it just means that as long as you can't see any black plastic, it means that you've at least got everything covered. It's nothing worse than having a bit of unpainted plastic suddenly showing through when you're nearly finished. Again, just try to get in all the little bits, get that decent coat of paint, and there we go, he's finished. Once that's done, we'll come back, do a second coat, and after that it'll be time to do the small yellow section in there and on his back, followed by other silvers, his head, knee brace on his leg. With that all dry, ready to go now, what we're going to do is get a small enough brush. So I'm going to get a small brush. There's no way a brush. There we go. So get a really small tipped brush, and all we're going to do is we're going to colour in the spots. So here in the very centre of this mechanism, and then there's a section on the back here as well, which we need to do in Avalanche Sunset. Tiny little pieces of the model, but they will look better for it. And again, because it's recessed, it's easy to do this now rather than wait to do it later on. So just again, tiny little bit of paint, thin it down, and then just as long as, again, we're going to be going around all of this sort of section later with some silver paint, so just concentrate for now on just getting those in right inside those recesses and making sure that they're nice and yellow. And then when that's dry, we'll come back and we'll put a second coat on it just to make sure it's really bright before we move on. So with the base coat on these things, kind of that sort of darky fleshy colour, and what I wanted to do is give it a kind of a bit more of a reddish look, so it looks a bit more like he's sort of got some blood on him or whatever, a bit more evil. So to achieve that, we're going to dry brush him with some corn red. Now, if dry brushing is a thing that you're not familiar with, what you need to do, you need to get yourself a nice big brush and you get some paint on there, and then what you do with a bit of tissue, you just sort of work into the bristles so the paint is loaded up. But then what you want to do is just keep rubbing it on there until not much is coming off the brush at all, and there's hardly any paint coming off the brush. That's when you're ready to start dry brushing him. And what you want to do, you don't want to be doing it too hard, be quite sort of gentle, and just start to flick it all over the model, just looking to kind of give him just a small shading of that sort of reddish colour. Again, you're not looking to coat him in it, you just want it to be visible, if that makes any sense. And for this you really want to concentrate on getting his arms, his back and his legs. You don't need to worry about the rest of him because you'll be going over that later with silver, but yeah, maybe a bit of that sort of guts that's visible down there as well. And you can take your time with this one. Try not to let the red build up too much, because again you're just looking for a hint of that red, not all of it, just to look pink. So if you sort of directly compare that with one that I haven't yet dry brushed now, you can sort of see, again it's very subtle, you can sort of see the red on him showing through a little bit. Yeah, so again you can get those arms done, get those legs done, the back, those guts, give them a little pinky tinge. Now I'll be honest, the gun is a pain, but because it's on the outside and you can kind of get, it's kind of hard to get to the skull. That's what I'm choosing to do first, the bone colours. So for this I'm using Screaming Skull, and as usual, again, a bit on here. And first of all, just do this bone here. Now, Screaming Skull is a layer paint, which means it's got a weird consistency to it. It won't go on as evenly as you'd expect it to. It's hard to describe. It has a kind of a transparency to it, with the intention that you're going to be layering it over the top of other colours. So you will have to do 2 good coats of this to get a really good bone colour. With this, you can sort of go for it however you like, really, with the skull. As I've painted these, I've tried to just do the skull parts, the bone colour, and sort of left all of the sort of surrounding neck. That sort of pinky flesh colour that we've done. And you can choose to do a bit more of that if you prefer. Again, it's just how I like to paint these guys. Now keep the skull a skull and keep the neck sort of realistic, I suppose, like a real flesh colour. So it looks a bit more like he's a guy who did have a head up until recently when somebody ripped it off. Yeah, so you can see pretty much most of that done down there now. So once we've done that, wait for that to dry, then we'll come back and put on a second coat. I'll tell you what, let's get a bit under that chin there. There we go. It's a little better. We'll come back and do the second coat. You'll see how much he looks a lot better after the second coat. Don't need to worry too much about him waiting for him to dry, because you're not really going to be going too close to him for any of the other pieces that we're doing. So now we get our lead belcher and then break open a new pot. So with the lead belcher, we're going to be just painting this sort of assembly here up the side of his leg. And so we will be doing 2 coats of this, so as always, don't worry about it if it doesn't look particularly shiny. This pretty much goes all the way up his leg to this kind of box there, and then there's a small little bit there. And try to get the edges as best you can, and then there's just the band that goes around the back of his leg, and again don't forget to do the top and the bottom of it. And as always, there's always a bit that's quite tricky to get to when you're trying to record it, so you'll have to trust me on this one. But I've honestly painted all the way around that leg and all the way up here to the box on his leg. And there you go. Now we get to the trickiest bit, which is this whole assembly over his head, his backpack and these sort of jetpacks. Now you can, if you want to, use a bigger brush than I'm using on here, but I would seriously recommend you stick to a reasonably small brush on this one, because the big brushes are good for getting a lot of coverage, and although you do need to do a lot of coverage here, there's also a lot of fiddly bits. So rather than you having to keep switching constantly, I'd just say stick to the smaller brush. You're going to do these sort of rocket boosters here. And that's the bottom of the back. So all the rest of that section down there is going to be sort of a fleshy colour. paint there. Right. So around his arm, try to keep most of the section under his arm the fleshy colour. There are these bits, it's like a connector that runs across his side. Get that done in the metal. But for the most part, the main thing is just avoiding getting any on his arm. There's two small things protruding out here that you need to do. Again, this is another one of those that's going to be quite tricky to show you on camera. And then all the way around where you painted the yellow earlier. And you want to just feed the brush into the hole just a little. So I paint around the inside edges of that hole. Being careful not to get any on the yellow. Again, under the arm, leave most of that. Just get those bars painted there. So it looks like kind of a harness going around him. Get as close to the arms as you can. And then these bits here, you're going to need plenty of paint on the brush to get up here. And this is where you need to be as careful as you can not to get any on that skull. Because you're going to have to get right in there to where the skull is as you're painting this section. But again, there's no hard rules here. Just do it as close as you're comfortable with doing. I'll just finish this piece off on his back and I'll get to the guns. Okay, so then we get up here. Get the outsides of the gun done first, nice and easy. Front and the back and the outside sections. So you will be able to do quite a bit without even going too close, but there are going to be some bits you're going to have to get right down there. Oh, and there you go. I've just nicked a tiny little dot on the back of the skull. Which I may get away with. I may not. As we were saying earlier, that's going to be the one that every time this model comes down to the table, I'm going to be like, ah, this is the one. Then I dotted his head. And there you go. So I've got in there a few more sort of sections in between here that I've missed. So that looks pretty good. I think he's done. A couple of small spots up here that I've missed. Oh, and the chin, just under his chin there. There you go. So he's done. We'll come back after we've done a second coat and we will get him washed and he's done. We're going to be doing his skull with Revenant flesh shade and then the silver bits around his shoulders, avoiding the yellow sections with some Nuln oil. Now for the flesh shade on his skull, I would recommend using a smallish brush, just mainly because you don't want to be getting it everywhere. And just giving it a decent coating with some of this will just make this skull area look a bit more sort of worn, like a proper skull. Again, try not to let it pull too much. You want to get it in the mouth and in the eye sockets, but you don't really want it to pull too much in there. Again, just get it a decent coat on to give it a kind of a brown appearance with the detail called out. So that's that done. Then we'll move on to the Nuln oil that we're going to just apply to all of the sort of backpack, shoulder, guns stuff. And you want a slightly bigger brush for this because you're just going to be caking it on. But again, make sure not to go on any of your flesh areas and certainly not on the skull that you've just painted as well. But what you're looking to do is just make sure you get enough of a coating on it so that it starts to make the detail stand out on the model as the paint starts to run into it. Doesn't need a lot of paint to get the effect that you're after, so sort of try to be clever with it. And that's pretty much it. He's pretty much done. We just need to wait for that to dry. We'll probably come back and do a second coat, and then that's it. He is finished, ready to go and shoot some people in the face. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll be back soon with another one. And there you have it. So we got two pretty good looking Revenants ready to come and blow up pesky marines from distance. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon with another one.